Oh,
You gotta reverse it.
shoot.
Hit the reverse button.
That's the reverse button, right?
That's it. Yep. There you go. Yeah.
You know what?
That's
If you, sir, are happy.
Yeah, you want to close the curtains behind it?
No, we're just fine, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, sure. Well, okay. So
if you like, we'll just start with the first question. What first sparked your interest in launching a building products company some 20 years ago, approximately?
yeah.
And what vision drove you at the outset?
Yeah. Well, I was always interested in building things. I would hang out in my dad's workshop.
Ah,
He would keep me busy, give me a handsaw and a 2x4 and a block of wood, and I'd put my knee on it and I'd just cut it. And then he'd say, well, put some nails in it. And I would just randomly bang nails into things. And I enjoyed in my mind seeing something that I wanted to create, as crude as it was. I built tree houses and
oh yeah.
go-karts, and I built science fair projects, really complex bridges, and
Oh, really?
yeah. Out of I just loved envisioning things and making things. So I always had an interest in building. I worked through my first real job that was kind of related to that was at a place called Beaver Lumber, which no longer exists. Home Depot has since subsumed it, but I worked in the lumber yard, and I was exposed to customers that wanted to build fences and things on the weekend, and I'd say, oh well, I'm available next Saturday, I can build that for you, and I would just go and do it for them. And I realized I could make some money doing this. And then when I was in university at the University of Ottawa, I was in a business program there. I came across another friend of mine who also was similarly interested and a very talented guy. And he had a lot of courage and no fear at all, and said, hey, well, why don't we just start up a company?
Okay.
And so I thought that was great. My mother being a nurse and my dad being a police officer were rather risk averse. But
Yeah, right.
yeah,
I can see that.
right. They were sort of the civil servant mentality. But my grandfather, both grandfathers, my grandfather on the Bergman side was a very entrepreneurial man, construction guy, owned his own construction house. So I said, yeah, let's do this. And we bought a pickup truck, and my mom was like, well, why don't you get a job as an accountant for the summer, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like I can make more money doing this, because the previous summer I had worked as a roofer, which is like, oh, that's the lowest job you could ever do.
Yeah.
But I loved it because it was athletic. Like I had to hump up all these ladders, run up, and drop these roof shingles in place, and we could do in this neighborhood, like back then we were re-roofing houses here like one a day with 4 guys, and of course we were students, so we weren't troublemakers, but
Yes.
some roofers are pretty rough characters. But I thought it was great because I was learning how houses were built.
Right.
And I'm starting on the roof. This is pretty cool. And then so the next year I started this company, started this company with my friend, and I learned how to build decks and fences, and I just learned how to design ideas for people and all the basis of running a business. And that was a lot of fun. And I also saw a lot of things that were wrong with the industry.
Oh, really?
So I started at a very young age seeing things and envisioning how I could fix things, how I could do things differently. But of course, at 21 years of age, 22 or 23 years of age, I had no means of figuring out how to do that. But I certainly had the interest in how to solve these problems. So that was sort of the inception of how I got started in the business. And that never left me. Never left me. But after I graduated from university and continued on for another year, and my partner and I had some disagreements. We had different philosophies in life, and still do to this day. But we're still friends. But it was clear that I wasn't going to be able to. I didn't feel comfortable. There was a deep voice saying, "Yeah, this is not the you don't want to be involved in this. And I walked away from that company and did my own thing. And I assumed that he would not use the name of the company.
Right.
It was called Prestige Fence, actually, Fence and Deck. And I assumed that we had a basic discussion that, you go do your own thing and create a new company. And I just assumed that he would not use the name of the company, right? And he did. And I found that was, I thought, gee, well, that you pulled a fast one on me there, because I created this company, just like you did, and I'm not. But anyway, I learned that in business at a very early age, at that point, that you have to be alert and not be naive, and I was incredibly naive. Anyway, I at that moment in time, I said to myself, I'm going to get back, not necessarily vengeance, but I'm going to come back.
Right.
I'm not out of this. There was like a voice from God telling me, you're not done yet. I have a plan for you. I have a plan for you. But of course, I didn't know what that was. And so I just listened to my parents' prodding, which was get a haircut and a real job. Go join the mounted police and head west, young man. So I did. I decided, well, I'll join the RCMP. I finished my commerce degree. So I went west. I went to training, the training depot in Regina. And then I got transferred to Chilliwack, British Columbia, in the Fraser Valley, and I was there for 5 years, and that's where I really got an education. And I was building stuff for people on my days off there. So I never stopped always thinking about, I would see construction sites and I was like, gee, I'd like to build a house like that. How are they doing that? They're digging a hole, they're setting up the plumbing, okay, they're tying in. All these things were constantly in my mind. And so, long story short, after 3 years in the RCMP, I actually took a leave of absence, if you can believe that. Probably freaking out my parents and everybody else. And I started up a company called Richwood Industries, which I ran for a year and a half. And I did about $160,000 of business. This was in 1993 or 94. So I was quite young at the time. But I also realized that Chilliwack was not, I couldn't break into that community, very Dutch community. And there was a saying, it's called, if you're not Dutch, you're not much.
Yeah, I've heard that. Actually.
Yeah, there was a saying. And I realized, like, I don't want to be in this community. This is not where I knew too much about it. I knew all the murderers, the drug dealers, the pedophiles, all the dark secrets in that town.
Yeah, right.
So I didn't want to be part of that. So then I went to law school. Decided to go to law school. Went back to the RCMP. They took me back, and I went to law school at UBC. From 97 to 2000, I went to law school.
Yeah, I think I saw that on your LinkedIn.
Yeah, so that was really amazing because I thought, well, you know what? And I got transferred to Vancouver at the same time in commercial crime. So now I was doing stock market frauds and money laundering investigations and political corruption and the Fast Ferry scandal and the premier taking bribes from the Hells Angels for casinos and all of these things. And I was seeing all the financial community in Vancouver and how basically it's just a money laundering operation. This was an eye-opening experience for a young man. But I loved law, and I thought this would be, and I loved patent law, which ironically I now have 12 or 13 patents.
Wow.
And I met my patent attorney there. So so I was trying to steer the ship differently, to get it. I did 5 years in Chilliwack, and then 5 years in Vancouver in commercial crime. Graduated from law school, and then I worked as a lawyer for a short period of time, about a year, only to realize that I did not like working as a lawyer, a corporate lawyer. I was like in a suit on the 26th floor of the TD Tower in Vancouver, and hoity-toity lunches at all these restaurants, and I just thought it's so much of a facade. I'm too simple a person for this. I don't like these complex conversations where I'm putting on a facade and I have to remember what I said. It's just like, I just am what I am, so to speak. And so I realized I can't do that. And that was like a midlife crisis that began for me because I had put so much effort to try to redirect my life, keeping in mind I still love building. But now I'm in this massive urban downtown corporate culture. And I went back to the RCMP. They took me back because I now had a law degree, and I was in charge of some really fun investigations. So I stayed in Vancouver till 2004, and I got transferred to Ottawa at that time, and that was where I realized that I wanted to finish my career here so that I could get back into building. So I was like, okay. So you got to remember, like basically halfway through my career at 10 or 11 years, I'm already thinking I got to hang in for another 10 just to get my baby pension, because I put so much time in now. And also that I had no desire to rise up the ranks. I had sort of seen what my father had dealt with, and my dad was a deputy commissioner, the number 2 guy in the entire organization.
In the RCMP.
In the RCMP.
Was that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I realized I didn't have the kind of moxie and skills that he had. I had the skills I have.
Yeah.
That's what God gave me, you know. So so at that point, between 2000 and 2004 is when I had started to really ask God, what do you want me to do in my life? Because I'm lost. And that's when I realized I was lost. I wasn't lost just spiritually. I surely was. I had been pulled into the secular world, and there was a lot of things just completely adrift. Alone, not married, wanting to be married, realizing I'm swimming in the wrong pool, realize the women I'm meeting are just like Delilah's, kind of like.
Yeah.
And just like a point where I just waved the white flag and said, okay, I got to get back. And I was Catholic at the time.
Really?
Raised Catholic. But my mother always said to me, never push God out of your life. Keep going to Mass, and because my mom would read scriptures. She was a Catholic that actually read the Bible from front to, which is very uncommon.
It is, yeah.
Very uncommon, but it served a purpose. So at that point, I started going back to church and just started going through the motions, but sincerely, and that led me to try to apply to get a job in Ottawa at headquarters, and I did. But critically, during that time, I invented my first product.
Oh, really?
I want to tie this in because it's kind of interesting because it was my first product. So in Vancouver, it rains a lot out there, and there was ways of people would try to use wood posts, but they would rot all the time, and so they
top.
There was a fellow that I worked for on days off, and he had an aluminum railing company where we would interpose wood posts, and he had a surface mounted post anchor that was very clean and elegant, and no hint of how it was connected. It was a screw-on type thing, but not very strong. So I thought, well, I could make one with a hollow tube inside, and it would be stronger. Mm-hmm. And so I started going to machine shops on my days off or at lunch hour when I was in the RCMP, and making prototypes. And so my backyard, my apartment in Richmond, this urban apartment, had samples on my deck, on my porch, on my balcony, on the second story or whatever, of my prototypes. Anyway, those prototypes led to the ultimate finished product that in 2007 I first launched. That was the Titan wood post anchor, and so 2004 I'm still deeply in the RCMP, but I'm still actively building these products on the side. So I'd never given up on the desire to make these products, and I kept it quiet in the RCMP. But I realized, like, I have to have a platform to sell it. How am I going to sell this if I'm in the RCMP? I can't go around. So I created a website. So I studied how to build websites. 2004, I built the website knowing that in a few years I'll have enough traffic. I can put an ad on my site. Maybe I'll sell one. Well, that's exactly what happened. So I worked my tail off on my days off, built this website, dexco.com. And around 2007, March of 2007, I launched my first ad, and I sold my first post anchor to a fella in Maryland for $9.99.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy. And since then, I've sold probably, between 500,000 and 1 million of them.
Amazing.
Yeah, of that one product. The patent is now expired. I started the patent in 2004. It just expired this year. But the mind share is already there, so it's a part of the ecosystem now. So
right.
So it's all right. But so long story short, it was a combination of these two things. Still living the life of the RCMP. It's a very schizophrenic lifestyle. Trying to do all these things at once and prepare for an exit strategy. Like trying to escape the Death Star and the Millennial Falcon.
Yes, yeah.
Very hard. In fact, prior to launching the final product, I remember I made my last prototype, and I was getting exhausted. This was around 2005, 2006. Getting exhausted, thinking, why am I doing this? I don't have the energy to do this again. Keep in mind that I'd parted business with my friend years earlier, and yet I still had this burning desire to. I knew that there was a voice inside me saying, "You're going to come back. You're going to come back bigger than that ever. Don't worry about that slight. It wasn't a big deal. Don't pay attention to it." So I've got these prototypes, and they don't work. They fail. I bought 3,000 of them from a company in Vancouver, shipped them out. Way too thin gauge material, and I just couldn't believe it. I hopped in my truck. I drove to the Canada landfill. And I backed up my truck and I threw it in. And as I was throwing it in, I had this all kinds of emotions. And
Is that right?
yeah, I had all kinds of emotions. I wanted to quit. And a vision of me, it was in the provincial 400-meter finals in 1978 when I was 12 years old, running against 14-year-olds. I was youngest in that category, and I was in my heat or final. I don't know what it was, but I got lane 8, and I was way out in front running this race. And by the time I came around the corner, these guys had passed me. I was now in last place, and I'm just exhausted by the 300-meter mark, and I'm coming down the finish line. I could see my dad in the crowd in the stands. A kid throws a little hot dog at me as I'm running past it's quite, I wanted to quit, right? I wanted to quit. That was the thing. And my dad was there, and he just said, keep going. And that was a critical moment because I could see him at the finish line. He's like this, right?
Yeah.
And he forced me over the line, and he said to me, don't ever quit. When you start something, you finish it, because quitting can become a habit.
Yeah.
And so that moment, all that kind of flashed in front of me as I'm throwing this stuff out into the dump. And remarkably, I felt a little voice that said, you're almost there. You're almost there. Do you really want to do this? And so I hopped in my truck, and I actually felt a sense of joy.
Oh, fabulous.
A sense of joy as I drove away, and I redefined the product, and I finished it. And months later, I had the working prototype that now actually has been in the market for 20 years. So, long story short, that's sort of the bumps along, but you can see the desire was always there, and never quit. Jody met me in 2006, and she saw one of my prototypes in my bedroom office, and she said, what is this? Or one of her friends said, what is this? You have a pipe dream? And it's made out of a pipe, right? So it was kind of a play on words. And I said, actually, yeah, I do. I'm going to launch this this product. So that's the lead into how I started the company, Titan Building Products. And then in 2011, I left. I went full time.
Right.
I had reached a point where I was at 21 years, and now I left the RCMP and I was going full time. So that's how.
So that's a bit of a watershed moment in 2011.
Yeah, 2011 was when I was fully launched, right? I was actually out of the basement. So between 2007, 2011, I'm in the basement of my house, showing up at lunch hour, and I've got some guys working there packing stuff, and then I'm back off to the office again. So through that time, I was very schizophrenic. I was trying to keep it under wraps before then I knew that it's time for me to do this. I'm going to do this or I'm not. Yeah, and I met Mr. Leonard Lee, who was the founder of Lee Valley Tools, and he would mentor me.
The name?
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, he mentored me, and he said, well, at some point you're going to have to flap your wings. And I said, it's going to happen soon. And when I finally did, I had another meeting with him. He said, so you've taken the leap. I said, well, now you're in flight. Don't look down at the rocks. Keep flying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So 2011 was when everything went full time.
You know, seriously, you've answered most of the questions. Can I interpose and say, did you often think about values you insisted on to apply to your business?
Yes, very much so.
That was always right here.
Very much so, because I had seen the dark, seedy side of business in Vancouver with all the scam artists.
Right.
And all the lies and everything else. And I remember reading a book where it said, if you will succeed in business if the people who work with you become successful. So if you can make other people successful doing business with you, they'll do more business with you. And the idea was that if you could stay true to, don't get into a fake business. Build this business on the rock, the corner, the stone, the foundation stone, and everything will grow from there. And so that's why I always thought I gotta just constantly focus on God's leaning. And so things like I remember reading the Bible and coming across Proverbs, it says, lean not on your own understanding, but in every way, trust in God's guidance. And that just totally resonated with me. And so it permeated the way I wanted to do business, and to discard bad relationships. But the policing experience gave me the ability to have Superman eyes. So I could look at a person and go, oh man, it's like walking into the bar with Star Wars, and I can feel the force, the bad, I can feel the dark.
Really?
Yeah, I can case people pretty quickly. I know a human being in probably 5 minutes or less, at least what I need to know.
Right.
I've seen every kind of human being there is. I can tell, like sociopaths, psychopaths, fakes, people pleasers, the whole 9 yards. But that's really good in business, because at least that tells you, what to avoid.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So those values. The other thing is pride. Okay, that's another thing. For me, that was my biggest problem, right? Pride. And everywhere in the Bible it says, God exalts the humble and he debases the prideful. And it's so much, it's everywhere. But another one that really, really resonated was with Colossians, and it says, in all things that you do for the glory of God. Mm-hmm. And I thought, that is what I'm doing this for. This is not, I felt that I had been saved. This is before I truly was saved, which is another moment. But I felt that God had pulled me out of my mundane existence in the government. Although I loved the RCMP, rising up in the ranks, I realized it was so bureaucratic. I couldn't function in that kind of environment. But he pulled me out of that miraculously. How on earth could I have done it? Too many things. I had a mortgage in Vancouver. I was stuck in Vancouver. The corporate job with a law degree. I'd worked so hard to go to law school. I tried all these things to improve myself. I still wasn't married. I gave up, but he pulled me out. So therefore I thought, you know what? Everything that I do, I hope I'm doing it, and I'm never forgetting that God made this possible for me. Yeah. It's not me. I don't even own this body. Oh, this body is not mine.
Absolutely.
So from that point, then I started attracting the right people in my business. And miraculously, my company is full of Christians.
Really?
I mean, believing Christians. And 80% or more. And I couldn't believe it. And I just thought back, well, that's the way he would do it.
Yes, isn't it though? Yeah.
That's the way he would do it. And that's the way I want it. And so those values are constantly on my mind. And then I began to meet other entrepreneurs in the business over dinner, things like that. And I realized this man is a deeply believing Christian. And he runs half of this town. And he's wealthy beyond what he needs, but he's not in love with his money. He sees himself more as this is the responsibility that God gave him in his community. And I thought to myself, I can't believe I'm around these people. Because in the RCMP, I was surrounded by the devil.
Yeah.
Literally, I'm dealing with murder and just the worst things you could see as a human being.
So you'd say your environment here in Ottawa is a very good one.
It's a very good environment. It's almost a fake environment. It's so good.
Is that right?
Yeah, because the federal government is here, you have a lot of softening of economic ups and downs.
Right.
So a lot of people don't understand that, outside of this city boundaries, it's pretty tough life in some cases.
A bit of a jungle.
Yeah. But we were lucky because we're close enough to so right off the bat, most of my customers were American. I had no idea. I knew that I wanted to create a great product that everybody liked. But of course, America's 10 times the size of Canada.
Of course, yeah.
So if you make a great product that people like in Canada, it's like we have it's the same thing.
Send it south. Yeah.
So, every 8 Americans would raise their hand, I'll take it. There's 1 or 2 Canadians. And right off the bat, that balance was very clear. And so being close to the border made it very simple. And although I had to work with a broker and I had to learn NAFTA and all this kind of stuff, and there's a lot of complexities in that. And today it's very different. We've actually incorporated Titan USA now. So
Really?
and I'm in the process of getting an E1 visa. And there's a whole bunch of stuff there. But the fact being in Ottawa was actually good because it was so close to the St. Lawrence River.
Right. Yeah.
And it made it easy. And there were some great business people in this community that have helped me. I'm thinking, like, first of all, Leonard Lee was a very inspiring man with Lee Valley Tools. He passed away in 2016, but I had many an opportunity. I remember praying, God, would you give me someone to guide me? I don't know what I'm doing here. Well, wouldn't you know, in the newspaper a week later, Jody says to me, "Oh, here's an article on Mr. Lee. He's talking about how he works with entrepreneurs that need advice. If they'll just donate $100 to the Almont Hospital." So I reached out, called the secretary. "Yeah, he'll meet you at Betty's restaurant at 6:30 a.m. in Almont."
Nice. That's
And I met him
amazing.
many times, maybe a dozen times before he passed away. So Ottawa was good to me, really good to me.
Do you have any? That's a fabulous answer, but Leonard Lee. Did you ever look into people such as? Did you have a specific biblical example of like a historical risk taker or something like that?
Well, for me, it's Moses.
Moses.
And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. So, and it's reverberated recently with the move to the United States, which is turning out to be the greatest blessing we could ever have. But I'll get to that. Moses, I remember saying, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. Waking up in the morning, this is in Vancouver, and saying, "Oh, you're chicken, you're afraid." These voices back and forth. And thinking that I was resisting this inner guide that was telling me, you do have the ability to run this business. You can do it. And I would say, well, look at me. I'm a lawyer. I'm a police officer lawyer in Vancouver. 3 million people. I don't know anybody. I'm locked into a mortgage here. I don't know how I could eat. Where would I go in Ottawa? And God opened the waters. He parted the way for me. Miracles started happening. Crazy miracles. Like the next day, someone emails me and says, "Hey, Richard, Peter German is looking for someone with a law degree and fraud experience like you've got to run the integrated market enforcement team in Ottawa. Would you be interested?" And I'm like, my jaw drops and I go, "How did that happen?" I was wondering how on earth I could ever leave this place. How did that happen? Oh, and by the way, he wants you to come to Ottawa and work for 3 months. He'll put you up in the Courtyard Marriott for 3 months. You're going to work with John Slider and you're going to set up this program here. Can you be there from, say, May till July? 2003. So I do it. And I'm like, how did this happen? And then in 2004, they final interviews. I get the job. So that's the first example. But recently, I've just been praying like, God, would you please? I don't know how I'm going to get my company from Canada into the United States. I just don't know how to do it. And we're going to go bankrupt if it doesn't happen because the tariffs are going to kill us.
Yeah, right. Yes.
And I said, and I remembered the story of Moses in Midian. God was saying, you're going to go. You're going to go take my people back. He's like, "No, dude, not going to happen. I got a happy life here. My father-in-law's a good guy. I'm running the show here for him. My wife and children, it's wonderful. This is not, no, I killed a guy back there. They're probably going to remember this.
Right, yes.
I've got a past. I'm not your guy. I don't speak well in front of people." All these things, and God would say, "I'll give you the words.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do this." And he finally did it. And then not only did he do it, then when he split town and took everybody with him, they're going through this desert, and finally Pharaoh is coming after him. He's stuck. All of that, he did all of that, all just to die like a weak man on the side of the Red Sea.
Yeah, sadly.
What happens is this: God opens the waters, and they pass through. And so I remember just even the last 2 years saying, "Look, please God, if you can open the waters, I will. I promise you, I'll just do whatever you want me to do. I'm going to trust you, even though my kids are here and everything. I'm going to trust you because you've given me this gift, these beautiful products you create. You gave me these creative ideas. You
It's
gave
all
me
in him.
it's you. So I'm going to trust you. My future is in your hands, and I will do this." And miraculously, things happen. The folks in Ogdensburg come back and forth and visit me. "Rich, we'll help you. We got a place here." "Well, I can't have mega rents in both Ontario and New York."
Right,
"No, don't worry.
right.
We'll do it for $1,000 a month." I go, "$1,000 a month? Are you kidding me? That? Yeah, don't worry. $1,000 a month. It's 3,000 square feet. I'm like, "We'll do
Wow.
6-month lease. Don't worry. You can renew it every 6 months. Come on." And I'm like, see, like again, he's opening the waters. So I look at Moses as a real great example of a guy who had every reason to say, "Hey, I'm out.
No.
I'm out. No, I'm not doing this." And yet, look what he did. So I find that inspiring, Moses.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Branding a company. Why did you go with Titan?
Yeah. So my first product, I looked at it and it was a vertical tube and a base, and I thought, it looks like a T. Looks like a T upside down, right?
T for Titan.
Yeah. And I thought, but it's also strong. Are there any Greek mythical gods that are strong? I thought, well, there's Titans. And
Right, yeah.
And so I just went with it. And then I went with a slogan called "The Art of Building."
Right.
Because the reason I did that is because I thought I wanted people to know that there's something. I have a stylistic ethos that I try to impart in our products, so that you don't necessarily know how complicated it was to design or make, just that it's easier for you to use and it looks great. I considered myself, certainly not at his level, but in some sort of way like Steve Jobs and Apple versus Bill Gates and Microsoft.
Right.
You want to use DOS and learn DOS commands, or do you want to use intuitive motions and so forth like on an Apple system? So we still to this, and now our slogan is even more refined. It's Titan Building Products, the art of building, and then below it, outdoor living made simple.
Right.
That's the big umbrella. And I know this is controversial, but I read all of Trump's books on branding and everything else.
Yeah, I've read his The Art of the Deal.
Yeah, I've read that too.
And I just read it on ebook. An audio book.
Yeah.
And I was sitting doing something else, like
Yeah.
working on something, and so I can say, yes, I've read his book.
Yeah.
It's excellent.
Yeah.
The examples he got.
Simple examples. Yeah, I know. Like I say, he's controversial, but I've read every one of his books and I've learned a lot. And I remember one thing he said was, build a brand that's an umbrella. The bigger the umbrella that you can live under.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of how we came up with Titan Building Products, the art of building, outdoor living made simple. Because everything I do now knows that that's the standard.
Yes.
And everything fits under that. And and I mean, we're a small company, but we have really great products that are just really growing fantastically. So, but that's how I would look at branding is what really think holistically on a high level from the 30,000 foot view.
Right.
What are you doing? And give me the pitch in the elevator that tells me what's different. Why do I care? I always ask, time you say something, you should say, so what?
Yes.
And then you give the retort. So what? And then give the response. So what? And if you keep doing that, now you ultimately refine and prove what you're doing is the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Dan's here. We're just having our discussion.
Hi, Jody. We're having a discussion. How's things with you?
Good.
Good.
Oh, you're getting
Yeah,
interviewed.
we're
Do you want a coffee?
Oh, no, thanks. No,
Tea?
thanks. You know what?
I have a nice chamomile.
I would love
blend.
a chamomile. That would be fantastic.
Great.
Yeah, so that's the branding issue.
Do you have? I was fishing for a funny story. Tools and way of doing things central to business. Is there an obsolete tool? If there's not, never mind.
Yeah.
Is there an obsolete tool or technology or way of doing things?
Yeah. You want to? Okay. Okay. So some of the screws that we use have to be painted black. The heads of them black. And but to do that, you need to order hundreds of thousands from a manufacturer before they'll automate the painting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right. Because it goes on a line, and it's usually powder coated, and it's a process.
Right, of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
so from the very beginning in my basement, I had to come up with screws that matched the black base of my post anchor. So I was going to, I think it was Rona at the time, or Home Depot, and I was every 2 weeks going there and cleaning out all of a particular screw. And so they're constantly running out of the screw, and I'm taking it down in my basement, and I'm using a pegboard. And I'm opening up the windows in the basement, got my mask on, and I'm using like Rust-Oleum or whatever it is. And I'm meticulously painting these heads. And we've made millions of screws now, okay? Millions of screws. But for the first several years, until I could get the volume up, that's how I was doing it. And then we got to the point where we're using like Leland Industries, and they have several plants in the U.S. and Canada that we use, and Leland does a fantastic job, and it's all done. But recently, just this year, okay, amidst all of the tumult and everything else with the move and the U.S. expansion and everything else, moving into a temporary facility where Leland was unable to fulfill the replenishment order, and so we had some old screws, perfect screw, but not black painted heads, and everyone's panicking, and I'm thinking, oh well, here we go, it's 2026, back to the future we go. We're going back to 2008, folks. What are we doing? Well, I'm going to get a pegboard, and we're going to do 3,000 a day, and if we do...
You were spraying.
I was spraying.
Okay.
But first of all, manually, I have to take all of these screws that are bulk in a big Gaylord and put them into a 4-foot by 8-foot plywood pegboard, okay, which takes a good hour and a half to do that.
Yeah.
It takes me 10 minutes to paint it, and then you let it dry, and that's 3,000 at a time we could do. I said, so what do we need? We need 30,000? Okay, well, we got 10 days to do this. We did 30,000 screws in 10 days. And in fact, we're still waiting. We're supposed to get the Leland delivery next week, but we got to do another run today of another 3,000.
Right.
So that's so hilarious. That never thought I'd have to do that again, but I am.
You've given me a bunch for question 11. You've given me a number of pivots that I think we've captured. That thing is still on. I hope.
Yeah, it is. It's still on.
Super. Thank you.
Yep.
Kind of big picture stuff. If this isn't a silly question, were you hit by going back to 2008, the Great Recession, the current spike in inflation, and COVID?
Yeah.
You? Did they give you a good smack in the head?
Oh yeah. So the benefit of 2008 was
It's perfect.
the benefit of 2008 was, although it was very significant, and it hit home values, and it did a bunch of things like that. We were so small.
Oh, okay, homes.
We were so small, yeah. But we were so small as a company that its impact on me, like if you're only doing $300,000 a year, the impact is pretty small. So we got through that, and we got through that period. But 2013 was our first real difficult year. 2013. Wonder why? Well, because we started out selling only online. Almost like 95% of my sales were online, and I had a distributor in Minnesota. In Minnesota that was promoted themselves as being a distributor that would sell to all of these bricks and mortar stores. Well, they were selling to really 80% of what I sold them would go to one customer, which was Dex Direct. Great company, but a direct competitor to Dex Go. We were both selling decking products online. And he, being bigger than me at the time, was blowing out my product, and that was the only product I had. So I went from $500,000 a year down to $380,000 a year, and Grace was only 3 or 4 years old. We had, Alex and Chloe were, 13, 15 years old. It was a busy household, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, I'm going to go bankrupt. This is terrible. So I had to make a big decision. I had to go to that person and say, no soup for you. The biggest customer that I had, no soup for you, just like Seinfeld.
Yes.
And then,
yes.
and then again, that was a moment of trust. So I remember sitting on the field over there, the soccer field, there's a little knoll, and Grace was playing. I'm just watching her, and I'm praying the Our Father, because I was still practicing Catholic at the time. Nothing beautiful. The Lord's Prayer is a beautiful prayer, by the way.
Isn't it?
When you really read
love the Lord's Prayer.
when you read that prayer, it just is. It's the most amazing prayer of all. It says it all. But anyway, I'm saying this over and over and over again, saying, "Please get me out of this. Help me. Help me. Help me. Help me." Please. And what happens within 12 months? I'm doing a show in Watertown. No, not Watertown. Alexandria Bay in New York.
Well, I know exactly where
Yeah,
it is.
so I'm doing a show there to all the local lumber yards and one of the distributors in Philadelphia, in New York, which is a small town, not far away. Anyway, there's a reseller there called Color Guard Railing, and I met Gary Lacey from Color Guard, really nice guy, and they wanted they were intrigued by my shadow rail product, my post anchors, and they wanted to see if we could do a deal where we would incorporate it under their product line, and we did. And they gave me basically $250,000 in sales,
Wow.
which made up for what I lost.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And I just, at that point, I'm like, how did that happen? Again, not me. God pulled that off
Oh, yeah.
out of humble prayer. And so that was 2013. Push forward all the way through, just steady, gradual growth until 2018. We hit $1.5 million in sales, and we had to move out of our 1,000 square foot warehouse in Canatech to
Right.
a new place. So we did. We moved into the new place, and this was just pre-COVID.
Oh,
Okay,
dear.
so COVID hits, and you can't get goods. We had pulled part of our production out of China 2 years earlier, thankfully.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay,
Yeah.
and we had used Vietnam, but still other things were coming from there. Large amounts of screws. We hadn't used Leland here in the U.S. or Canada yet, so they're telling us it's a year to get your screws. I'm like, hey, that's not going to work. A year to get my screws? Oh, we're out of business. So all these there's a whole litany of things that were going on during COVID, but demand started to spike. So people started buying stuff for their homes like crazy.
Because they were at home.
They couldn't travel or whatever.
Right.
And then there was fake money dumped into the system, so inflation started going up.
Oh.
Inflation went up like huge numbers. It was like, well, what do I charge for my product? It's great that I'm getting more sales, but my expenses are going up more than my sales. I had to hire people. I hired everyone in the church. I hired all the kids there. I had like 12 kids working at lunch hour. We didn't even have packing machines then. They were packing things by hand in
boy.
plastic bags. So we got through all that. Sales grew. New customers came on board. HomeDepot.com came on board. A bunch of really good things. But we became a bloated company.
Oh.
We became a bloated company with high sales but high overhead. And me being the guy on the front end that loves to market my products and loves to invent them and see happy customers, I'm less concerned about how things get done in the back end. It's like, make it happen, do the accounting, blah, 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 blah. Like, chase down the bills, let's go, come on. And it turns out that, in retrospect, I should put as much effort into how things are run in the back end as I do in my pursuit of perfect products.
Mm-hmm.
So COVID was really, really hard. We grew, we had to expand our footprint, but at the end of that period, two things happened. Demand started to come down in 2024 naturally. It was like the hangover.
Right.
And then with the tariffs coming on board and all that, our aluminum that's made in Canada is 50% now. Steel is 25%. what do I make? Like almost all my products are steel and aluminum.
Right.
So I'm like, and then, so people freaked out. Customers disappeared on top of that because couldn't tell them what we could sell our product for. We didn't know how I could even get it from Ontario to New York. So that whole period still is difficult, but it led to the realization that we got to get set up in the U.S. It's time. It's time because this is too complicated and too stressful. So the last 2 years have been really, really hard, but it's forced us to reduce our workforce and improve our processes, focus on inventory that sells, not sells. And me as a developer, don't develop get pulled off on a goose chase on a stupid product idea. Focus to my niche. So it's all been really actually very good in the end. But so COVID was super hard. Yeah.
Do you have any? I'll never forget the time when chaotic day in company history. I think we've got piles of information. Any? Is there a day?
Well,
You've already gone through some pivots.
Yeah.
So I could use
Yeah.
those.
There's been lots of amazing moments where the team came together, and it's almost like they pull rabbits out of the hat every day. But you know, we've had a number of customers disappear and then come back in full force, and so there's nothing but gratitude for that. We've had well, I guess, I mean, I can't pick a moment where it was a great day of doing our job. There's just been so many, but I can think of when I realized, like, I signed this lease in 2025. I re-signed a 5-year lease. And there's a saying, and I don't know why I did that. I'll never do that again because it was the stupidest thing I ever did.
Is that right?
Yeah, because back to the COVID thing, rents went up. So going into the new place in 2019, I was paying about $65,000 a year in rent. The renewal, by the time we were at the renewal, I was paying $193,000.
Oh my goodness.
So that's a 300% increase, right? In that
Right.
period of time. So and I re-signed for 5 years because I didn't know, the tariffs had not yet been announced. I assumed that we were going to make it and I was going to stay in Ottawa. And it's literally a week after I signed it, Trump made the announcements, and I realized, in my mind, I went from A to Z and realized I'd made a huge mistake. And so I had to get out of these leases. So that's another lot of prayer. But what happened was, starting in February, I engaged a real estate company to help me get out of, I have 2 leases, get out of them. The first one, we got out of by November. A company took over a lease. That cleared us out of probably 30% of what we were paying.
Oh wow.
And then we since December, we pushed through until the springtime, and now we have another company that wants to take over our final lease in Ottawa, which gets us out of Ottawa. So that 5-year lease, if all goes well, we'll be free of it in literally 18 months, which is kind of miraculous. In this environment, it's a very economically depressed environment, quite frankly. And I had a premonition that I should, through a friend of mine, that said you should look around the Iroquois, Johnstown, Morrisburg corridor along the St. Lawrence.
I know the area. Bev and I have been there.
Yeah. So he said you should look along there. And so I just drove there and I found some big warehouses. They're massive, 300,000 square feet. They look like they were ghost towns. I went in there, knocked on the door. Guy answers. I said, hey, my name is so-and-so. We're in Ottawa. We're looking to relocate along the St. Lawrence Seaway for the Canadian operation. And have you got any unused space? Are you fully productive here or not? And he goes, eyes open up. He goes, like an angel came to him or something, right? And he says, come on in. So he shows me the place, and it's just, and they're going to rent us. So then I met the owner in Montreal. I went to drive to meet the owner in Montreal. And we've got a letter of intent now to move there once we close this lease. And the rent there is a fraction of what we were paying. So think of this. From all of that craziness, to a Canadian operation right where you want to be to service the Canadian market along St. Lawrence, and 5 minutes over the bridge to Ogdensburg,
Right.
where our U.S. operation is to service the U.S. market. And I'll be able to helicopter and hover, so to speak, with my E1 visa to manage that transition and develop the U.S. operation to its full potential while sort of babysitting the Canadian operation. Now, you listen. This is like, I make post anchors, I make widgets. I'm not the smartest tool in the shed, but this is so complex. What's had happened, I can't even imagine how this all could have come together. So you can sort of see how it's kind of a crazy series of events.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you could go back in history to your whenever your startup was, would you consider doing things differently at the beginning?
Yeah, there's a lot I would do differently. I would probably pay more attention to the mechanics of a business. I would put more time into understanding how record keeping works.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right. I would be more on the pedantic, detailed side of things, so that that's set up properly. Some people that started at the same time I did. A fellow in Texas that grew up here in Ottawa. Actually, he lives in Dallas. Met him. We partnered for a little while. He took the approach where he had basically investors behind him, and he never set up an e-commerce site.
Okay.
So all his sales had to go to wholesalers or lumberyards. So either a third or 50% off what the market value was. Whereas I was fortunate enough, having none of that, not knowing anybody, being a nobody, having no family, rich family, nothing. I realized I had to sell right to the customer right off the bat. So I created Dexco. He said to me, "Wow, I can't believe you did that. I wish I did that." Now he's already sold out of the business. He's moved on, and I'm still plugging away, and I'm in the fight of my life right now, which is fine. But so I don't know whether I would have opted for getting angel investors involved at the very beginning or not, because if you do that, it's probably faster to market in many ways because they have all kinds of skill sets you don't. You
Right.
avoid a lot of the things I learned. I have so many scars on my body, it's crazy. But I'm also smarter, and I own the company 100%.
Oh, 100%.
100%. So that's good and bad. You see, if it goes great, it's great. But if it goes bad, it goes bad.
You're going to get a smack in the head, as I mentioned.
Yeah. So I think by God's grace, I think it went the way it was supposed to go.
Yeah, right. That's a great line.
Yeah.
A historian is making up a time capsule because I'm in a history course. And we're looking for you or your company or your family to put a physical object in a time capsule or even some photos. So would you put your patents in there maybe?
Yeah, for sure. I've got my patents are all down in my office downstairs.
Oh, is that right?
And also my first box, my first package of my first Titan post anchor. My father passed away in 2019, and I never really appreciated how proud he was of what I did, because I always thought he was kind of sad that I had abandoned his career. But we had a really, really great conversation about 3 months before he passed away, and he said, I always knew you didn't really want to do this. And he said, but you did a great job. I'm very proud of what you've done. It's amazing. I can't believe you did this. And I said, well, Dad, I did want to do it because I couldn't have been a police officer if I didn't believe in the commitment that it takes for my community and my country and service. And I did it in honor of you. I did it in honor of you because you raised me, and there's so many qualities about you that I see in what you've done, and I wanted to be part of that. But so when he passed away, I found in his room my first product that he had on his desk. There it was. So I have it downstairs.
Oh, that's how it's
Yeah. So I want to keep that as a reminder.
Oh, wow. You've given me about 10 times more than I was expecting.
Well, Yeah,
So if a future historian wrote a book, so we'll say I'm writing a book about your company,
sure.
what role would, sorry, if I were writing a book about the building industry, what role would your company play, and what sort of legacy would you be happy to be remembered for?
Well, I would just be happy to be remembered for a guy that started a company from zero, from no money. And I want young people to know that don't listen to the naysayers. You have infinite power to find ways to get started, and that you can build something from nothing. And that in my case, I approached things from a different view. I never listened to all the people that said you can't make a product that will do that. That I came up with ideas that no one ever saw coming. For example, our Snap and Lock baluster system. You know, you're going against people like Decorators and Universal Forest Products. This is the largest company in the industry.
Is that right?
These are behemoths. And you know, they had a system that where they would just stick these balusters into holes or over plugs, and which is fine. They use hollow aluminum tubes and so forth, and that's great. You get a nice infill that's metal and looks great. But then you have to take the top rail, which is not part of the railing assembly yet, and it's got 15 plugs coming down, and you have to independently fit each one into these independently dangling 15 hollow tubes. You can't do it by yourself.
Right.
You need a person to do it. And when you get the 14th one in, you try to get the 15th one in, it all falls apart because it has to be simultaneous. So I came up with a system that's like in my mind, if I could go snap, 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 then I eliminate all that. And it could be a one-person job. It could be and my daughter was 7 years old, and she sat at this table, and I brought home the prototype, and I said, Grace, can you snap that in for me? And she did it. And Alex, my son, was here, and he goes, wow, that's your best invention yet.
And how old was Alex at the time?
Alex was around 19, 18.
Oh, okay. So he was...
Yeah, he was working part-time. And so that's what's on the backyard out there, the first prototype of the Snap-Lock. So I hope I just be remembered for really cool ideas that impart sophistication, but not to aggrandize me, but to make the product easier for people. So you can impart things which are make a product easier to use, and if it's easier to use, people appreciate that.
Yeah.
People appreciate that. So that's what I'd hope to be remembered for, is just being kind of like, if at all possible, sort of like the Steve Jobs of my little quadrant. That's what I'd like to be remembered for.
Well, I deeply thank you. Anything else that my add-on question here, number 17, is anything else spring to mind?
Well, I mean, it has been a journey. I think of Jeremiah 29:11. I have a plan for you. If you to prosper, for good things to come. I could quote it. It's a great proverb, but it's basically, listen. We all have a path in life, and God's got it planned out. If we don't fight it, if we actually peacefully listen and follow that, you can't even imagine the people that God will put in your life and associate you with the right people, right? Because you can chase your dreams and get hooked up with some dark people. Like in Proverbs, it says, "Come with me, let's rob these people."
Yeah,
and
Proverbs 2 and 3.
It's just
it's a horrible chapter in Scripture.
Yeah.
Why don't you just leave those guys alone?
Yeah.
We're gonna get them.
That's right. But it's real. It's real to this day, and so I would say, to people that for me as a Christian, I can't imagine doing this job not having faith, because it requires faith every single day, and to make decisions that are so complicated sometimes with ramifications that I can't possibly fully understand. But if I ask for guidance, the right people come and give me guidance. So I would say that to anyone in business. You got to keep that in mind.
That is a perfect way to end.
All right.
My goodness. Well, thanks for the
Oh,
tea.
you're welcome.
I'll just pop it over on
Sure.
on the counter and.
Do you want me to turn this off or
Oh, yes, please.
Sure.
if you
There we
don't
go.
mind.
Okay, I'll turn that off.
I'll just pop this on the counter.